Creepers left and right, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to steal my lady. Spiders in the mirror and things can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spirit drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound, the clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around, 2,000 little fires. And ooh, your circle is spreading. Slowing things down when I wanted to race, catching up again when it's...
Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I'm going to try... I don't know that anybody even cares. Maybe some of you do. Nobody ever comments on the camera quality in my videos, which I think is really nice of you when I use my phone and stuff, but I did want to use my camera, my regular camera, because every time I piece clips together for my blog, if I've used my regular camera, I'm always like, it's so nice. So, hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Let's start another reading vlog. Today is Monday. I have a lot of driving to do today because I need to go to my mom's house and take her to a doctor appointment. So she lives about 45 minutes away, and then her doctor appointment is 40 minutes away in a different direction, and then I'll have to take her back to her house and then come back home. So I'm going to be driving a lot, and granted, when my mom's with me, I'm not going to be listening to audiobooks, but I do still want to have some audiobooks going, obviously. So last week's vlog, I finished a bunch of fantasy books. I finished a couple of fantasy, and I did a sci-fi thriller. And what I'm really, 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 really wanting right now is some contemporary romance. I really, really want some contemporary romance. But what I had kind of thought I was going to do, honestly, was go ahead and find new, to me, audiobooks that were out. So I was hoping, I had seen Love Unwritten had an audiobook coming, but it's not out yet, so I'm kind of bummed about that because that doesn't come out until August 12th. I don't know, I didn't even look for a date, I just saw that it was coming. So what I think I'm going to do instead, I kind of wanted to do new contemporary romances because I just sort of feel very out of the loop with everything. I don't know. Anyway, what I think I'm going to do is try new to me contemporary romance authors. So I'm going to start with Laura Pavlov, and I'm going to start with Loving Romeo because this is on sale and the audiobook is pretty cheap. So this is, let's see, Small Town Enemies to Lovers, standalone sports romance first in the new Magnolia Falls series. I see this author around all the time. I feel like Jesson has read her and hasn't loved her books, but I kind of want to see for myself how I feel about this. So let's see, this says, he's the boxer from the wrong side of the tracks. She's Magnolia Falls royalty, the epitome of everything good, while I was broody and rebellious, blah, blah, blah. We couldn't be more different. Her family was enemy number one, which made her guilty by association. She moves in next door, can't avoid her. She's beautiful, honest, sweet. Yeah, so we're gonna go with that one. So that's the book I'm gonna start with. This one, I don't know when this one was even published. 2024, January 18th. I'm not sure if that's probably just the audio. Anyway, that's one we're gonna go with. So, Loving Romeo, I'm excited. I'm excited for contemporary romance. Let's see how it goes. And hopefully this vlog follows my plan. I'll see y'all when I have something to say. Hello, my friends. Okay, welcome back to the vlog. It is Wednesday. A couple days have passed, and I am almost finished with the first book. So, I apologize if I'm repeating myself. I haven't had time to even look at the footage from the first clip, so I don't know if I mentioned, but the whole point of this vlog, we'll see if I'm going to be able to do it or not, because it's already Wednesday, and I want to get this vlog out on Monday. I know, you don't need to know the behind the scenes, right? But the reason I started this vlog is I wanted to try, and again, I apologize if I'm repeating myself, I wanted to try new to me contemporary romance authors, kind of specifically indie, but not entirely indie, and I wanted to read them until I found a 5-star read. So I do feel like I've been a little disconnected from the indie romance scene, indie contemporary romance scene for sure. And after all the fantasy that I read, I just was in the mood for it. So I picked Loving Romeo, and this cover is so beautiful. I think this author has such beautiful covers. And right off the bat, the first sentence isn't great in this book. It's a little gross. It's a little 13-year-old boy humor. And I was just sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to vibe with this author's writing style, right? Because I know that it can be common for authors, whatever, I'm going to pick on indie romance authors because that's what I'm reading. It can be very common for them to lean hard into a perceived stereotype right off the bat. That way they can establish their character, that this is a very macho guy, this is a guy's guy, you know, and give him the qualities that typically women will want in a romantic hero, but leaning a little too hard into stereotypes. So that first line that was talking about, I don't even remember what it was. If I can find a picture of it, I'll put it on the screen, but I was just sort of like, this is where we're headed, is it, you know? But then I kept reading. The writing style I think is fine. I think her dialogue is fine. You know, I honestly, I don't have a problem with her writing. Her prose, line level type of writing. I also really liked the premise of this, which is our hero's a boxer, and our heroine, you know, she just graduated, well, not just, she had graduated from college and she moved back to her hometown. Like this whole series, this is the first in the series, is this small town romance series. So she just moved back to her hometown and she opened up like a coffee shop slash, I think maybe it's a bakery too. I only have a half hour left at this point, and I think that it's a bakery too. I think it's a bakery too. But it's mostly like a coffee shop, but she also sells protein shakes and stuff. So, you know, I think that is really just prime setup for just a really cute romance, and I was very excited about that. And that combined with the fact that, you know, our heroine mentions she has a horse at her parents' house and that she goes riding, and I'm just sort of like, that's my stuff. I really, really like that. So it's going well, right? And we also have this enemies to lovers setup, well, at least on the hero side. He has beef with her family because of some mysterious circumstances that you find out throughout the course of the book. She's kind of oblivious to that. You know, she was kind of the golden girl in high school. She didn't really know any of this that had went down. So things move along. They meet each other. He comes into her coffee shop one day. This is a very minor beef, but it shows up continuously in the book, and so I'm going to mention it again. That, you know, he shows up to her coffee shop to get this, I can't remember what type of drink it was. Maybe it's a pumpkin spice latte. I can't remember. And because his mom and sister or aunt really wanted it. And he's hesitant to go in there because he doesn't like her and her family. Like, he's got major problems with them, right? But he persists because he loves his mama, and he goes in to get the drinks for them, and the heroine is like, oh, you know what? Actually, we sell protein shakes too. Like, I'm assuming they make blended protein shakes. And this is the part where I'm just sort of like, okay, this is obviously a contrivance for them to have a meeting because he's a boxer, he's an athlete. Oh, she sells protein shakes. And then she proceeds to explain to him why protein shakes would be necessary and what the purpose of them is. And I'm just sort of like, you have got to be absolutely kidding me if you don't think that man knows what a protein shake is and how beneficial they would be to his training, which then proceeds, you know, which then leads me to believe that the author inserted that in there for the reader's benefit so that we would know what a protein shake is and what the purpose is and why he needs to keep coming back there, right? Which in and of itself isn't a bad thing, but that's another flag against this author because what that says to me is you don't have any other way to get that information across to the reader where the heroine has to literally deliver this bit of information through telling the hero who obviously would know about protein shakes and training and things like that. So I was just sort of like annoyed, and that continues to pop up as she's, you know, making sure to get these protein shakes for him. And I'm just sort of like, if you know, anybody, I think worldwide, protein shakes are very well known, right? But any serious athlete is not going to leave their nutrition to chance. Specifically, if you're a competitive athlete, if you're competing, and as is the case here, if that's like how you earn your bread, you're not gonna, you know what a protein shake is and why it's important, and you're gonna eat it. Okay. So anyway, minor gripe. So then, you know, things happen. Her shop gets robbed, and the hero, Romeo, ends up stepping in and saving, sort of trying to protect her, and so she ends up staying with him, and that's when the romance really happens, okay? And I will say that I liked the romance. I thought it was very sweet for the most part. I have more gripes coming up. I thought it was very cute. I thought it was very well done. I thought they had great chemistry. But this author also does something that to me is kind of something that is almost a cardinal sin. It's something that I am so freaking tired of. I don't want to see it ever again. I hate it for a lot of reasons. So from the moment this man sees the heroine, his immediate first reaction is to have a physical response. Right? That's his literal first reaction. He continues to focus upon her physical features and how they create that physical reaction in him over and over and over again every single time that they meet. And, you know, if an author needs to do that once to establish chemistry, like, I think there are better ways to establish chemistry than immediately going there, right? Like, the hero focuses on her lips, she's biting her lips, oh, physical reaction. Like, why does that bother me, okay? And I want to be clear, it's not because it alludes to his physical attraction to her, or that it is in any way related to that. Why that bothers me so much is because that distills her entire character down to a vessel only. And I'm so tired of that. I'm just so freaking tired of that being the leading force in romances, and it is extremely common in indie romances for the hero to see something about the heroine and then immediately have this physical reaction, his pants get tight or whatever, you know, all of these things that are obvious clues to the reader that he's extremely attracted to her and he's having a hard time showing it because of his very physical, obvious reaction, like not showing it, you know? So that just continues to happen over again, right? Constantly. Now, that is interspersed throughout the book with moments where he finds her sweet or charming or things about her. You know, he has a very fierce protective instinct about her, which I love. I am always going to be here for a protective hero. I love a protective hero, and this guy is very protective of her, so that's a lot of points there. But it just bothers me so much. Like, there was even a scene in here where he brushes her hand with his hand. Their hands brush. And now, guess what happens? You guessed it. The same physical reaction that happens every time that he looks at her, he thinks of her. Like, he touched her hand, and the first thing that happens is the physical... Why? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to... Why... Besides the fact that this is very frustrating, and it doesn't at all talk about their chemistry in any way that goes beyond physical attraction. It just doesn't, right? We literally have 2005 version of the hand flex where hands don't even touch, and I don't care if Darcy was thinking about that in that moment. I don't care. I'm not even thinking of that. Because the author didn't tell me he was thinking that, right? Not even the author, the filmmakers, they didn't give us that internal dialogue. They showed us his reaction, the clenched fist, the look on his face, his body. I'm not saying that Darcy had that type of reaction because I don't feel like that is necessarily a common, I'm losing the train of thought here. I'm not losing the train of thought. I have the train of thought. I feel like I'm not articulating it well, right? Physical attraction is very normal, very common. We love it. We love physical attraction in romance. It's a driving force, but I get real tired of it when it is nonstop, and that is the only thing that is drawing our hero to our heroine. Because, especially when you consider that there's this enemies element here too, like, why were they enemies? Oh, but he can't stop thinking about her and having this physical reaction to her, and I'm just so over it. I'm just so over it. I mean, the amount of times that this was in here, right? I don't feel like this is necessarily exclusive to romance. If any genre did this, where the character had some type of a thought, you know, like, let's just use this for an example, right? Let's say we're reading a fantasy book, and the hero, the main character, the protagonist, every time that he thinks about his enemy, or every time he thinks about going to battle, every time he sees anything that's red, anytime he sees anything that looks like armor, anytime that he sees or thinks about anything that might lead his directions to battle, he immediately pulls his sword out, right? Like, I'm just so freaking tired of it. It is weak writing. It is weak writing, and it is weak writing in romance. I am tired of these authors choosing to only focus on this aspect. And I say only, and I know it's not only because there are other bits of it here, but it is the driving leading force of why this man is drawn to her. And that is not enough reason. It is just simply not enough reason. Unless, I don't know. So I know I kind of went off on that because it's been percolating in my mind for 2 days since I started this book, but I also will say I don't hate this book. It's still a fun read. I just have to like roll my eyes every time that happens, right? Some of the dialogue is a little cringy, for sure. And cringe, like, that's subjective, right? What some people think is cringy, others people are like, oh, that's so cute. So I don't want to even, I hate to even say that because I think romance novels get called cringy often enough as it is, and I hate that personally. So, I don't think this is a bad book, but there are tons of Goodreads reviews, and they're almost, like, this has a 4.07. I don't think this is going to be a 4-star read for me. I'll be surprised if it is, because it's just, I don't know, it's just not. But again, like, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I know I ranted about it because that is one particular pet peeve of mine, and that's one of the main reasons why I freaking stopped reading indie romances, but apparently, like, I feel like I am obviously in the minority because people are eating this up with that many ratings and reviews, and almost everybody that I've seen on Goodreads that I'm connected with in some way has given this 5 stars. Now, a lot of them were ARC readers, and, you know, I'm not saying that they're not cutting that out. We're gonna zip that out right there. But yeah, it's the thing about it is they do have good physical chemistry, but those continuous thoughts of the hero always take me out of it. And the romance can be very sweet and romantic, and I don't think that romances always have to be sweet, but I wish there was a better balance here of noticing things and having physical responses and having that physical attraction instead of it being every freaking time. Okay, so I'm going to go finish this, and then the next book that I start, because this is not going to be a 5-star, is going to be a surprise. I'll tell you next time. Hello, friends. Okay, so quick update. I just took my hair out of a ponytail, and now it looks like I have like a gigantic, I mean, I do have a gigantic forehead, but it looks like it now. So I decided to start Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. This is a book that Jen from the Book Refuge wanted me to read, and I've heard a lot of people really, really love this. I also feel like Cheyenne, that tall book girl, loves this. At least those are the only 2 that I've seen. And I've kind of just been waiting until I was in the mood for contemporary romance, and here we are. And I picked it because Jen loves it so much, I feel like it is probably going to be a 5-star. It could be. So right off the bat, I'm only like a quarter of the way into it. I will say that the way that this book begins is so different as far as the hero's interaction with the heroine and what he's thinking about her and how he feels about her. Like, I feel like their first meeting, so our hero is like a hockey player, she is a figure skater, and he had some accident on the hockey sheet, ice court, whatever, and now he's kind of traumatized from that and not really wanting to skate again, but, you know, like, I feel like his college depends on it, or his father wants him to, things like that. He's feeling pressured into it. So something that he does is he starts coaching, like, Little League hockey to try and do that. And when he is there coaching, there are these 2 boys that are brothers that kind of, like, endear themselves to him right away. And they end up having to wait there for someone to come pick them up, and it's their sister, who is our heroine, and she's late, and, you know, he immediately recognizes her, but he doesn't know where from, and she's definitely got, like, her back up with him. She doesn't really warm up to him quickly at all. She's kind of not like she's not charmed by him like he kind of expects her to be, you know. So I loved their interaction because their first interaction, there is no mention of what was happening in Loving Romeo. You know, he's noticing her, he's aware of her, he's attracted to her, and he feels this pull towards her. And that's the thing that I think makes their interaction so much more compelling to me, is because he's kind of like teasing her, he's noticing her eyes, he feels like this fire for her, like all of these things that just feel very romantic and not even just romantic, right? There's something that is compelling and magnetic of her for him, like he just feels completely drawn to her. I think there's such great banter. You know, this has a little bit of an antagonistic vibe because she's kind of like, you know, not putting up with his crap or whatever. And it just works so much better here than I feel like it did in Loving Romeo. Like this book feels just like leagues ahead of that one. So I am very excited about it. I am excited to keep listening to it, and so far it's winning me over a lot. I like the characters, I like the complexity to the heroine, the fact that she is the one who's raising these brothers. I want to know what's going on in her life. I think that she is very multifaceted as a character, and I feel like he really is as well. And honestly, I feel like we maybe get a little bit more of his point of view, a little bit more of his backstory, because it opened with him and sort of like the tragic circumstances of his accident and things like that. And it's very good. I'm very excited about it. And I saw that this is been picked up by Atria Books. I don't know how to say that. And so I asked Jen, was this like originally indie? And then, cause I've been like not paying attention to indie romance news really at all. So I was like, was this indie published first and then it got picked up? And she said, yeah, I guess it was indie published November, and in December of last year it was picked up by Atria Books. So kind of, this is, I guess, her debut. It's very impressive for a debut, and I'm just really, really here for it. So I'm excited. It's just so fun to read their interactions and how this is progressing, and I'm just having a great time. I'm having a great time. So I'm excited about this one. I'll keep you updated.
It is time. It's the perfect summer night. Those three words are spelled out in your eyes. But before I go on, say something wrong. I just hope and bite my tongue. 'Cause you've been told.
Hello, my friends. Okay, look. Well, what do you got? What did you just eat? What was that? Cosmo, come here. Come here. Dogs, children. The dogs are the new children in this house. Not really. I still have one child here. Anyways, oh my gosh, is it going to focus on me? Let's see if I can turn it that way. Hello, welcome back to the vlog. I did finish Unsteady by Peyton Corinne, and I really, really loved it, and I gave it 5 stars, so I'm sorry. I used to have the setup in here so like easy because I was constantly, you know, vlogging in here because the rest of the house was like occupied during COVID. But anyways, okay, so I finished Unsteady by Peyton Corinne, and I honestly really loved it, and I gave it 5 stars. So my quest for a 5-star contemporary romance new to me author is over. I found one. I really loved it. I in fact loved it so much that I immediately bought a physical copy. It's arriving today, it's not here yet. And then I also started listening to the book all over again. Like I finished it and I was like missing the story so much that I just went back to the beginning and started it over again. And I honestly never do that. I never do that. So I've been thinking a lot. I finished this book last night. It's about noon on Sunday. And I've been thinking a lot about why. Like, why did this book hit me so hard? Because truthfully, it has some things that I typically don't like. This is a new adult college-aged romance. And for the most part, those are not my favorites. You know, I am very far removed from that age group, and a lot of times, not all the time, a lot of times I feel like they have a very immature feeling. But even more so, I feel like the characterization is often not great. The characters feel shallow. They don't feel like fully fleshed out people. They don't feel real, you know? And, you know, I've talked a lot recently, like my last week's vlog when I was reading The Way of Kings, side by side when I also read Artificial Wisdom. The Way of Kings was fantasy, Artificial Wisdom was a sci-fi thriller, very fast-paced. The thing that made me not love Artificial Wisdom was the lack of really great character, not even just growth, but like depth to the character. Whereas what made me absolutely love The Way of Kings is how incredible those characters were. Not only like how well they were just written on the page, how they appeared on the page, but how they responded to situations and also their thought processes and everything like that. So this has been a very interesting reading week to go from reading the Laura Pavlov, which I did like. I liked it a lot. It was fun. It was romantic. You know, we have a few very great scenes in there that romance readers love. Like, he goes and rescues her. Fabulous scene. It's full of tropes that we really like. Sports romance. You know, he's an enemy to her and has to kind of soften towards her. And, you know, he's a boxer. Like, all of these things on the surface that are just things that we really, really like, you know? So why didn't that book work for me as well as it did? And when I mentioned in my previous vlog clip about that book, like the one thing that is my pet peeve, the constant physical reaction, the way that it's described every single time he sees her, every time he thinks about her, even, you know, I talked about when they were brushing hands and he had that again, that exact same physical reaction. It never varied, it never changed. There wasn't anything about, there may have been some, but it was so overpowered by his constant, like, lusting after her that I didn't notice, or if I did, it was, like, over like that. Anything else about her that drew him to her, you know? So if I have to say there is a weakness with that book that made me not enjoy it as much, it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. It doesn't really have anything to do with, like, the setting or the tropes involved. It 100% has to do with the characters. Because the way that he responds to her in every single situation, it creates a very one-dimensional character. It keeps him very flat and static. It doesn't show you really much about him other than this very basic, obvious, biological response. And what does that say about him? Oh, he's this very manly man who, you know, like, boring. Honestly, boring. So I thought about those characters a lot. I think I even mentioned earlier how the heroine also felt very flat. Like, there was not much about her. She does have a little bit of a rocky past with some family members, but she's so overwhelmingly sunshine and cheery. And you don't really get, even though that book was first person, you don't really get to see their thought processes. You don't get to feel any feelings that they may have, like any type of conflicted feelings. And I think that when an author can really center on the feelings of being conflicted about things, that's what makes a character really, really work. And again, like, this is something that has to, like, just, for me personally, my personal taste, this has to just be right in the very center, almost erring to the overdramatic side. Overdramatic will be over here, right? Because if they don't show us that, then I'm like, flat, one-dimensional, boring. I don't care about this person. This is a cardboard cutout. This is a trope only. It's not fleshed out, you know? Whereas if they go onto the other side and they kind of lean too heavily, then you can be like, okay, you're going over the top. That's too much, you know? So that's quite a big ask. That's quite a big ask for an author to dwell and thrive in that middle zone, to get the characterization just right, to have you in their head enough to give you certain thoughts and feelings or reactions or responses that this character is having so that they feel like a real person. So they feel like a real person, so much so that you can understand them, you can have empathy with them. Like it's truly not enough for an author to simply, Lord of the Rings meme, one does not simply write an alpha hero and everything is fine, right? No, I'm joking. Please laugh at my joke. But you can't just simply have a guy really, really desire or want her and be protective, and that's going to satisfy me, or that's going to me, right? And a lot of you, I know, probably a lot of you who are watching this, that's not going to be satisfying. That's not a satisfying reading experience. That's like the equivalent of, I don't even know what the equivalent of that is, but like every time I read a book like the Lara Pavlov, I'm just so very much reminded of the Saddle Club books that I read as a kid, or the Babysitter Club books, which I didn't read. I read the horse books, because who wanted to babysit when you could ride horses, right? That was my whole thing. You know, those books were written very much to a pattern. Everything about that book, though, you know, they're little tiny books for kids to enjoy reading, and kids loved them. I ate them up as a kid, but even as a kid, I would read those and I would feel like there's just something lacking. This isn't really satisfying. I'm not really getting what I want. And then I would read a book like Misty of Chincoteague by Marguerite Henry, which has such excellent characterization, and she goes a little bit, not like deep, because it's still got to be, you know, easily digestible, but she does kind of go a little bit deeper into their family situation and why this horse is so important to them and why they want to get it. You know, like, all of these things add a level of realism to this book, and that's what I say I'm going to keep saying, that's what we want as a reading experience. We want this to feel, yes, we want it to be a fantasy, right? Nobody goes into a romance wanting it to be 100% realistic. Nobody goes into fiction, maybe literary fiction author, writers, readers, right? Nobody goes into fiction wanting it to be 100% realistic. You want it to be an escape. You want it to be something that gives you a break from reality. But, and this is where it gets so hard, is because it has to have just enough realism that it gives you the illusion of reality while giving you this alternate version of happily ever afters, everything working out okay, you know, perfect circumstances. Like, that's the reading experience that I'm always looking for, you know, and I think that it can be a very, very difficult thing to find, regardless of genre. I think, you know, in genre fiction like romance, or I would even say maybe like thrillers, mysteries, I think there can be the tendency to be formulaic, because you know the formula sells, and you know what readers want. And they're going to eat it up, they're going to buy it, and then, you know, they're going to finish it in a day, and they're going to need another one. So you got to be writing to that pattern. So I think that's another reason why we see a lot of these indie romance authors come out with release after release after release after release. And I don't think there's really anything wrong with that at all, because it was a fun read, but it wasn't anything that I'm going to really recommend. Honestly, I would not recommend that book, probably, at all, just because it's not... Anyway, and it's not going to be anything that I really think about a lot. It's probably not going to be anything that I revisit ever. I would not reread that book again. Whereas when I finished Unsteady, I felt like there was so much in there that I wanted to like go back in and get into these characters' heads and to see if I had missed some things, or to relive moments where they were interacting with each other, to see that build up again of how they fell in love and their circumstances and how they got out of the problem at the end of the book, you know? I just loved it so freaking much. And that's not to say it was a perfect book, right? Even as I was reading it, there were moments that I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a 5-star. You know, like, I don't really love this that's happened here. I don't really love this that's happened here. But overall, it was a 5-star. And that is 100% for me. The fact that we have these two characters who are very, very flawed, but still very lovable too. And I think that she uses like the point of view, this is first person point of view, just like Loving Romeo was, but she uses it so much better in my opinion here, because not only is she in the characters' heads, and she's clocking, like, you know, she's giving you their internal dialogue, she's not giving you too much, but she's giving reactions, thoughts, dreams, hopes, you know, everything that is painting this picture of you know, Reese, our hero, our hockey star hero, collegiate hockey star, he was in this big accident in the beginning of the book that really traumatized him and damaged him and made him afraid to skate again. And so he has panic attacks. And our heroine is a figure skater, and she is raising her two younger brothers. Her dad is, you know, there, but not really there. There's a lot of problems surrounding her dad. It's not a safe situation. And so she's doing her best to raise these young boys. I think one of them is like 10 or 11 or 12, and one is a little younger maybe. But she's trying so hard to raise them and to give them a good life. And she's working to keep her scholarship. So she, you know, she's kind of killing herself with her job. And she's also trying to kill herself with practice so that she can keep this scholarship and so she can work to get these kids the thing they need, because their parents are out of the picture. Their mom is not in the picture. Her dad is a deadbeat. It's a dangerous situation, and she's like hanging on to a cliff by her fingertips. And that alone adds so much just admiration for her in my book. You know, I did see a few reviews where people said they really didn't like the heroine, and she does some things that are unlikable. You know, she can push people away. She kind of uses intimacy, physical intimacy, as a way to mask and to mute the pain that she's feeling, and that kind of has earned her this reputation that is not good and that she doesn't really like. And she can be very abrasive and mean, and I think that's all because it's that mother bear syndrome. Like, she's trying to protect these kids, and if that means she comes across as mean or hurtful or pushing people away, then so be it, because she's at least going to protect those kids, you know. So they meet they don't meet for the first time. Like, there is a moment where they see each other on the ice when she comes to pick up the kids from this, you know, skating lessons that he is teaching them. But then they do meet later when Reese decides to go and skate, to try and skate again, and he ends up having a panic attack on the ice. She comes to skate as well. It's just the two of them in this rink, and she hears him having a panic attack, and she has some experience with that with her little brother, and she goes to him to try and calm him down, to try and help him, to try and soothe him, and she puts her headphones in his ear so that he can hear this music that has helped her brother so much in this playlist that she has made. And that is how they first really connect. They have this really, maybe it's a trauma bond, you know, I'm not going to psychologize them, but, you know, that's when they really connect, and he starts to see her as salvation from that moment on. And so everything about him is just drawn to her. He was drawn to her when he first saw her, just, you know, physically and some of the sass that she was giving out. But then when they have that interaction, when he sees that, you know, she saved him and she didn't make him feel stupid and she didn't make him feel a certain type of way, like she saw him and she responded to his need. He feels seen. And then now he is, you know, and she feels something there as well, obviously. But again, she's got those walls up. She's got to protect those kids. And so a lot of the book is him trying to, like, work through those walls and her kind of letting him and then kind of not. It's a little bit of a push and pull situation, which I know can be frustrating for readers. But it felt so realistic to their characters. It felt so realistic to who she was and her situation that it didn't bother me at all. In fact, like, I just kind of ate it up because I loved seeing him kind of so tentatively try to show her that he was for real, that he cares about her, that he's not just here for one night or whatever. And it was just so beautiful and so lovely. And, you know, there's so much also to be said. I've been talking for so long, I apologize. There's so much also to be said about how their family situations have shaped who they are. You know, she comes from a very broken family where she's basically had to parent herself from the time, and these two little brothers from the time when she was 16, and he comes from a very loving home. His family are very involved in his life. His parents love him. They're always there for him. They're supportive of him. So towards the end, when things are starting to maybe feel like it's going to work out, she sees his parents interacting with him and her little brothers, and that kind of was one of the most touching scenes I had ever seen. So there's a little element of like a found family here too. It was so beautiful. It was so lovely. And I just adored watching him work his way into her heart, you know, and she's willing to do like a friends with benefits situation at first, and he really doesn't want that to happen because he wants more, but he's gonna like take what he can get. And there were just so much nuance to the characters, to their personalities, to their situations, to how they responded. It felt very real, and I adored it. I loved it so much. 5 stars. One of my favorite, probably, honestly, this is probably my favorite romance I've read so far this year. So I'm so happy about that. And shout out to Jen for, she recommended this to me specifically a few weeks ago when I was talking about, when I read P.S. You're Intolerable, she recommended this. She's like, when you're in the mood, here's another one that I think you will like. And I loved it. I loved it so much. So I can see how this book got swept up as in a traditionally published deal, because it was wonderful. This literally has every single thing that I want in a romance in it. It was perfect. And I'm so happy that, honestly, it was like a new adult college romance, because I haven't had one of those really work for me in a really long time. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait to see what else this author writes. This was her debut, and I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, it's funny because when I finished this, I caught myself like looking up other hockey romances, and it's like, remember, Crystal, this is why I don't love like trope recommendations, is because just because it's a trope that you just read and liked doesn't mean that it's going to be written the same way, you know? So anyway, I loved it. I loved it. So overall, this was a fun reading week. You know, I did really enjoy the Lara Pavlov. Like, I kind of feel like I harped on that thing that I didn't like, just because that is such a pet peeve of mine, and I also feel like it does things to the character that make them weak and watered down, and I don't like that, you know? But I still had fun with it for the most part. I really did. It wasn't like I hated the book. It wasn't like I was trying to rush through it. I still enjoyed it, you know? It was just slightly disappointing, but Unsteady was 5 out of 5 stars. And it's also a longer contemporary romance book, and I've heard a lot of like talk about, we don't want contemporary romances over 400 pages like on Threads and whatever, and honestly, I feel like that was the perfect length for this book. If it had been any shorter, we wouldn't have been able to talk about all of the things or show all of the things that really contributed to their story, which contributed to their romance, you know? So yeah. If they're well done, I never want the book to end. That's not true. But I love long books. It's just the ones that aren't really saying anything that I'm like, does this need to be this long? You know, like, I don't know, The Way of Kings is another good example of that. Okay, I've been talking long enough. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for coming back and joining me for this vlog. I love y'all so much. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thanks for coming back and being with me on my journey of indecisiveness about what genre I want to read. You know, romance always is going to have my heart, but I have really enjoyed going back to fantasy and, you know, trying different things that keep my brain awake and interested. And yeah, so if you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a, let's see if you can even see him. He doesn't look super cute yet because he's not finished, but this is going to be a toothless. I'm working on it. So leave me a dragon or a black heart for toothless. And I'll see y'all in my next video.